everybody, and welcome back to the Blossom Review. How are you? This week we're doing things a little bit differently. This week I wanted to talk about two different Netflix original movies. One Japanese and one Korean. I wonder if you can guess what movies we'll be discussing this week. So the idea is today I will post a short review, shortish review of a film, and tomorrow I'll be posting the review for the second film. So today we'll be talking about, drumroll, Yeon Sang-woo's Revelation, which came out in March. And then tomorrow I hope you come back for our review of Higuchi Shinji's Bullet Train Explosion. Alrighty, our review is spoiler free, so shall we start? So if you haven't watched the film yet, Revelations follows Pastor Sung Min Chang, who's played by Jun-yeol, as he slowly becomes obsessed with divine revelations telling him to punish ex-convict Kyung-young-rae, played by Shin Min-jae, who is currently involved in a kidnapping. Investigating the crime, we have Detective Yi Yong-hee, played by Shin Hyun-been, whose sister was Kyung's victim, and now she's placed in this position that she needs to investigate this new crime, so she has to juggle justice and personal vengeance in order to close this case. So as you can see, the plot of Revelations revolves around a crime, but the narrative setup actually pushes the investigation aside, and we soon understand that despite this mystery thriller cover, Revelations is actually a psychological study of faith, morality, and justice. So Revelations doesn't take long to introduce us to our main protagonist. Within about 15 minutes, you are given enough information to paint an accurate picture of their past and present, and you can sort of guess what's coming up. Which is good, right? Because you hit the ground running, so okay, this is the universe we are being introduced to, let's go. The problem is, the information that we are given in the rest of the film is not enough to build Sung, Kyung, and E's characters into well-rounded human beings that we, as the audience, can understand, empathize with, or properly judge. As the narrative of Revelations unravels, the story's demons and conflicts seem so superficial that our protagonists seem to become rough sketches of the complex beings that they are supposed to be, which fails to ignite all the ruminations that the story is actually pursuing. So in order to talk about these ruminations that the story was pursuing, we need to talk about these characters separately a little bit. So with the kidnapping taking a back seat, Pastor Sung's escalating obsession is the thread that actually guides the plot, let's say, and builds tension throughout the entire film. As Sung's spirals out of control, he becomes unable to differentiate between religious faith and delusion. So Sung is only able to see what he wants to see, capriciously assigning meaning and reason to what he does, sees, and says. His descent into madness actually goes hand in hand with Detective E's hallucinations of her sister, which makes the film feel a bit like a horror movie, a ghost story at times. But anyway, Detective E's character is defined by this unbearable sense of guilt, and as she faces Kwon again, she is forced to move past her own twisted version of reality. So Detective E actually creates this contrast with Sung, because unlike Sung, Detective E realizes that she needs to see beyond her own biases. She needs to reevaluate her beliefs and prejudices in order to defeat Kwon, let's say. And finally, Kwon is portrayed as two different beings, let's say, but neither of these facades are given enough depth to make him a truly engaging third protagonist. What do I mean by that? To Sung, Kwon is the devil himself, which feeds his fantasy even further and makes the film feel like a battle between good and evil at times. Of course, this battle between good and evil only exists in Sung's mind, of course. Meanwhile, to his psychiatrist, Kwon is just a traumatized, broken human being who needs to be understood. Detective E's perspective of Kwon dances between these two sides, let's say. So it's clear that as Sung becomes more and more monstrous throughout the film, Revelations is trying to question what really makes a villain and whether such a thing exists at all. What really makes Sung and Kwon different? Are they any different at all? I think here the message, the ruminations that I mentioned before, the message that the film is pursuing becomes very clear. As we allow ourselves to become distorted by our views of the world, we can all become villains. But the thing is, this message never really gathers momentum, and to the audience, Kwon ends up being just a plot, let's say, just a plot device used to ignite Detective E's and Sung's awakenings, very simplistic awakenings. So Revelations might be a thriller because of the crime, a mystery because of the police investigation, a horror film because of the hallucinations of this whole thing with the church. But at the same time, Revelations also navigates more fantastical waters, let's say, as most of the actions of the narrative defy logic. I know that these actions, not actions, but events, I know that these events of the narrative, they are trying to highlight this diabolical influence, okay? But these events often defy logic. So with this mix of genres and a lack of solid exploration of these characters' actions, motives, and personalities, Revelations feels adrift most of the time, and it's like the film haphazardly jumps between events and perspectives and styles. So it feels a bit, the entire thing feels a bit messy and not engaging enough for us to really connect with the narrative. On the technical side, I must confess that even though some visual choices feel a bit out of place, some compositions are extremely effective. The VFX is quite convincing as well. And even though the story is a bit flawed, I have to say that Jun-yeol and Hyun-been offer some excellent performances. At its core, I think that Revelations is a disturbing take on how fragile human beings actually are and how easily our judgment of what is right and wrong, what is morally acceptable and deplorable, can be distorted by our own desires, beliefs, and biases. It reminds us that we might all be justifying our sins by seeing devils that don't really exist simply because we refuse to look at the world around us differently. Despite its very intriguing, very timely, I think, very timely premise, Revelations fails to explore its very complex ideas with the precision and the depth they required. Now, sometimes we're not looking for a complex film, right? A complicated film. So if you're looking for a straightforward mix of mystery, thriller, horror, fantasy, and psychological drama, and you don't like gory films, I think you might enjoy Revelations. On the other hand, however, if you are looking for a more meticulous exploration of the human psyche, you might be left wanting more. So if you want to give it a shot, it depends on the day, right? It depends on what you feel like watching today. If you want to give it a shot, Revelations is on Netflix. Quick reminder that this review is also on the Blossom Review. I will leave a link in the description. Make sure to stop by tomorrow for our review of Bullet Train Explosion. And I hope you have a lovely day today. And take very good care of yourself. I hope you like the video and you subscribe so I can see you here very, very soon. Big kiss. Thank you so much.